Hi, it's Nancy welcoming you to Gardens Grow. It's hard to imagine that in just a few weeks all this will be gone. I'll bring some of it in. Frost will come and then a hard freeze will take the rest of it all out. And then we'll get to rest. And then when spring comes, hopefully we'll be ready to start all over again. It looks like my little clippings that I took from my Bougainvillea did not make it. You can see they're just all brown and dying or dead. But we'll see. They still, if they could put on a root, that'd be great. But if they don't, like I said, it'll still be fine because they were just going to have to be clipped off to be brought inside anyway. Because there's definitely some of this stuff I'll want to bring inside. Like this airplane plant. And of course my beautiful begonias. My little plumeria that my friend Dee Dee gave me just got opened pretty and looks like a real plant now, and it won't be long before it'll have to come inside and just go dormant for the winter. So, you know, I'm hoping it comes back out, but she assures me that it will. So, and I believe it because I do know that lots of things will just go dormant through the winter. You don't even water them or anything, and you bring them back out in the spring and they will revive themselves. With the rain and the sunshine, they'll just take off again. I'm seeing that there's a little one right here that's bent, and I'm taking that one for seed for next year. And I'm taking some pictures this morning of things. Look at this little grouping right here. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to try to remember to save these seeds in an envelope and mark them especially to plant together, because I think that would be pretty in a pot by itself with the yellow and pink. And I haven't yet had any of my passion vine flowers to bloom, so I'm still hoping, though I am. Remember the time when I saw one and I literally screamed with delight. So I hope I get to show you one again, or many more than one would be great, but just even one would be wonderful. These little plants had gotten really dry, and I moved them over here where I could keep an eye on them a little bit better, and they'll probably be some of the first ones that I take inside. And of course I'm taking them inside so I can better care for them, but you know how terribly bad I am with houseplants, so we'll see. But I am going to, like I said, try to rig up a little better lighting system for them so the light can come from above rather than from below, sitting on the floor on a plant stool. My little blue butterfly plant did not do much at all. I think it was getting just too much sun anywhere I put it. So, but it's still alive, and I'm hoping I'll be able to save it through the winter too. And hopefully it will come back out and we'll have blue butterflies in the garden, because its bloom looks just like a little blue butterfly. And when the wind gives it a little breeze, it actually seems to flutter. I'm taking some of these seeds too. I just love this little flat zinnia. I'll take in some of these pots with this pretty wandering Jew in it. But since I don't do well with houseplants, I'm going to try to fix up my friend Ruby. She has been wanting some of the wandering Jew, and so I'm going to try to fix her up a little pot and have it rooted in good for her and take it to her, and hopefully she can keep it in her home through the winter. This little begonia had tipped over a bit and wasn't getting water as much as it needed, and it was all wilted down. So I just drenched it with water and then set it over here in the shade. Hopefully there'll be enough shade here. But it did perk back up, thankfully. I'm going to be dreading bringing these in because they do so well outside and they do so poorly inside for me. But I'm hoping to get these to live year after year and bring them out every year is my hope. But we'll see if they will do that for me. I do believe my little mum is rooting. I know some of it still looks terrible, but look how some of it is looking so much greener and sturdier and standing up to attention. So I think that some of it has made a root. These are the little divisions that I got for my friend Erica. This is a yellow spider daylily. These are the regular little Stella d'Or lilies, daylilies. This is a pretty pale yellow with a little ruffle. This is called lemon fluff, and I was reading about it. It sounds wonderful. Let me actually just take this off for a second, show you what it says on the back. It says, can't miss perennial. This strong grower blooms for weeks from mid to late summer in sunny garden areas, providing lots of frilly 3 to 4 inch globe-shaped flowers. But as I looked a little bit closer, Erica, this also said it is an obnoxious weed. So plant at your own discretion. I do have some of these in my garden and I love them so far, but these could sound to me like they could be a problem. This one is another daylily. This is a beautiful daylily. And the little extra something there, that is a Sweet William. And it's also perennial. It will come back next year too. This is a yarrow, yellow yarrow. And this is another daylily that's beautiful. This is a light blooming daylily and it's got curved petals and they're just really pretty. This is a phlox, a pretty pink phlox, and this is a beautiful pink peony. And this is a sedum called Brilliance. It's a very pretty sedum too, and all of these will get fairly good size, so you'll have to kind of decide where you want to put things. But what was I going to say? Oh, and also this little plant, it gets, when it does get big and its blooms come on, they can get heavy and it can just kind of lay down, so you'll probably want to get some type of penny support or some support to hold it up, which right now mine are flopped over, except for this one. This one is a Autumn Joy Sedum, and it is standing upright, but that's only because I just planted it recently in this pot. I thought I had a spot for it in the back, but now I'm not really sure where I'm going to put it, but I'll find a spot right now. It looks great right there. Oh, and look, this little pot has a little extra in it too. This is a Chinese dance cap flower. It's also perennial. These little ones right here on either side, and they're growing up, I think, in all the pots, are actually just seedlings from my impatiens, so they won't be back next year. And this is Thursday, the 16th of September, and I heard one of the weather reports that said we may be looking at next Wednesday night to have temperatures in the 40s, maybe even 40. So, oh my goodness, why does Oklahoma have to go from 90 to 40? So, I mean, I know that's a night temperature, but all these little house plants and anything tender will need to be brought inside or covered or something. So, I just hate to lose things in the garden, but you know, it's got to happen, and then we've got to be able to rest anyway. The garden and I both have to be able to rest. That doesn't make it any easier to let it all go. And what a job we'll be looking at for that. Oh my goodness. So much that'll need to be brought in. I'll have to clip a bunch of this off in order to bring some of it in. And then I'll have to spray it for insects before I take it in the house. And then I'll have to find a spot for it and go ahead and finish. I did put up my lights, but my plant lights, but even at that, they're not like I want them yet because I couldn't find the vines. I want some silk ivy vines so that I can, so that it'll look better. They just look terrible just hanging out of the ceiling like they are right now. But if they'll get the job done, that's going to have to be the main thing. But when I can find some pretty silk ivy vines, I think that will look better to kind of hang there with them, so that they'll kind of just look better. Oh, and I did do some of the clipping back so you can see some of the things, and then others I just left it the way it was. I'm going to just not try to uncover everything. There's just too much to do that. So I'm going to just enjoy what I get done. And oh, it's a wonderful morning this morning. But it's supposed to be up in the 90s again later on today. So, or up to 90 at least. Also, I did get my friend Ruby some purple, not Purple Heart, but Purple Wandering Jew. So I'll be taking this to her soon. This is one of the things that I'll need to be taking in before next Wednesday. And here's some more. And I noticed that this one, it was looking horrible, But now it's got some new growth on there, so I'm glad at least it got a good start to go in, because I'm sure it'll go back to looking horrible in the house. But I'm hoping that it will live and be beautiful again too. This is another one where I trimmed it down where you could see the little squirrel decor in the pot, and it just looks better all around. And then I put these little clippings in other places to see if they would get started. So there's so much that would be beautiful if the weather will hold out to give it time where it'll have a chance to truly be beautiful. Here's the place where I transplanted some little ones, little clippings. And of course here's another spot. You can tell these are like looking kind of wilty. That our 90-degree temperatures didn't help them out any yesterday. But they could still come out of this if it doesn't get 40 degrees for long and keep them too cold, and then all the coleus will be like this, because as I've mentioned before, they just do not like it to be cold. And then it won't be that much longer before we'll have to be digging up the elephant ear bulbs and several different, all the caladiums and dahlias and just all the rhizomes and bulbs that need to be saved through the winter, because they're not a hardy plant. So after I've watered the last 2 or 3 days, I've been clipping a few things back. This is one of them. You couldn't see this little girl before, now you can. Well, just barely. I didn't want to clip too much of it back because it'll all be gone soon anyway. And a lot of it, I just let it cover things up so I can enjoy the flower. And then the decor will be there for spring when there's not much coming up yet, and what is coming up will of course be small. I clipped this little coleus down quite a bit, and I just like it a lot better. Plus I got to use those little clippings in other places too. This is where some of those little clippings went. And I had tried this before, but they just didn't make it. So we'll see if these will. And I put this beautiful little coleus clipping in this pot because it was looking so scraggly. But honestly, between the heat and the oncoming predicted cold, I don't know how it will fare. I wish it'd be gorgeous and we could enjoy it for a few weeks. I clipped these back again from their wild petunia blooms, which actually I do love, but it's kind of nice to get to see the little decor in the pot and the pretty coleus. Some of my clippings from this little plant went around this little decor in this pot. I had planted a phlox there, but it didn't make it. And the little matching pot on this end. And it didn't have as much of the coleus in it, so I did transplant some from the other pot to this one. And if it has time to grow up, they may come a little bit closer to matching each other. But even if they don't, they look good. These are some clippings that I put in earlier, and they're doing well right now. And they were much needed in this little pot. I still need to get rid of some of this chrysanthemum. It's just overtaking everything. I like it here. I just don't really want that much quite. And then of course this little zinnia was really tall, and I clipped it back, and it already looks healthier, and there are a few buds on it. And I usually put my strawberry fields in pots, and they don't get this tall usually, so I honestly didn't know they got this tall, and I think they're supposed to even get bigger, or can get bigger, which this is a good size for my garden. And I noticed there's a mole just tearing the ground up over here, or a vole, whichever, I'm not sure. But I also did go to Google and ask about putting tulips in pots. It sounded like a great idea, but of course someone has already tried that, and what I read was that it's very unlikely that they will come back and bloom the following year if they're kept in pots. So I'm going to forego getting any tulips this year until I figure out something that I can have a chance of keeping them without the voles eating them all winter long, and then I don't have any for the spring. Actually, this little enclosed in railroad tie garden is where I've had tulips the longest, and the voles and moles didn't get in it as easily, but once they did, they just tore everything up that I had in there, so as far as the bulbs. So I don't know, we'll see what I can come up with, but it won't be this season or this year because there's just not time enough with all the other stuff I'll have to do to think about that right now. More of the pretty sedum, and more of my mums are opening up. I think everything in this little stand will have to come inside. I know the pretty Rex begonias will definitely have to come inside. Now these are actually the Chinese dunce cap, are actually a perennial, so I may just leave those out here and see if they won't come back next year. This will have to come inside, this little artillery fern, and my aloe will have to come inside. These will have to come inside, the copper plant, as well as the dragon tree plant. Both of those will have to come inside. This little agave will have to come inside, which of course will leave empty spots that I'll need to fill. But I do have some pots that I just really didn't have a place for, but I went ahead and put a few things in, so I'll probably just set those on this where the empty spots are, and I may get some pansies for these places too. I trimmed this little pot down some and put some of it on the other side, so it's still, I don't know that I'm happy with it, but it looks a little better and it could grow into looking good. Well, it seems like I did so much more than I actually did, or else I just didn't do enough. This is one place where I clipped back, and yet you still can't see the little decor in it, so I need to clip back some more. These are just so pretty. I hated to take enough off that they didn't have a really pretty showing, but I definitely want to take some more out the front of her face in this little pot also. So the little birds have determined that this pampas grass seed is ripe and ready and delicious. Me, the gardener, is having a hard time making the decision. No, the decision has been made to bring the house plants in September. And what is today? The 18th, I believe, of September. And I'm having such a hard time with the actual bringing them in pot, because I feel like why bring these beautiful, they love it out here, they're doing so well out here, and I'll take them inside, and I do so terrible with houseplants, and my little house is darker than they need, and I've got plant lights, but you know, they just never seem to quite do the same, and I can't get them situated just right. But anyway, it's got to happen. I know it's got to happen. I've got to do it. I've got to get them inside. Of course, not all. I won't bring these inside, although I wish I could. Aren't they gorgeous? It all makes me wish that I had a great big beautiful greenhouse, but you know, right now that's way wishing. That's in the dreaming stages for sure. But at least everybody can dream. So I'm going to try to take a few in, maybe even today, and I'll leave bare spots here, and I'll have to rearrange the whole furniture, the whole plants. But I definitely have to do that. It's just got to be done. And I am, as I say, having a hard time doing it. It just doesn't fit well in my mind. But it does too. I know better. I've learned better. I've got to do better. You know what my mother used to say? Know better, do better, and everybody will like you better. So that was another one of our old sayings when we were kids. Isn't that terrible? This is another one that needs to be brought in. And this pretty wandering Jew. It looked horrible when I brought it out this spring, and it's going back in my house where it will begin to look horrible again. But I hope I'll be able to save it through the winter and then be able to bring it back out. And look at this beautiful coleus, but right behind it and in the same pot is my candlestick candle plant, or shrimp plant, as it's mostly known. But I saw it called candle plant, and I like that name better. I'm not a fan of shrimp. Sorry to all the shrimp lovers. This chocolate plant is blooming too. This is actually one of my favorites. The blooms are not quite big enough yet for you to really see how pretty this plant is, but it is just so pretty with those little white tufts. And I've told you that my little aloe vera had little pups to come out on it, and I took the pups off and put them in little pots, and look, they're coming back. They're actually coming back. I think all of them that I clipped off are actually coming back, if you can see that little one right there. And there's probably the one in the back may be coming back. Let me look back there and see. I don't see it coming back yet, so it may or may not be. But I really didn't particularly want them to come back through the period where they have to be inside, because I'm having a hard time enough just getting this original and keeping it alive. But I hope to be able to, and it's certainly looking good now, and that's just another good reason for letting them stay out here and not taking them in. But I've got to get over that. I've got to get over it, and I've got to get busy bringing them in. So I just have to remind myself there'll still be some pretty zinnias and other things that I don't bring inside, that I start back next year from seed of these little ones. So there, and I won't take all the coleus for sure. There's no way I could, but I will try to get a clipping before frost takes them out, and put some in the windows to save for next year. Look at these beautiful little double profusion zinnias. And of course the single zinnias, profusion zinnias, are also making their showing. They really just stand out so much in the fall garden, or in the late spring or late summer and fall garden. Still have some pretty hibiscus blooms, and that's another plant that I'll need to bring inside. They're not cold hardy. This pretty variegated hibiscus. I will actually need to uproot this little coleus, because I want to take in this pot also is my Bougainvillea, which is also not a hardy plant, so I definitely want to take it inside. I've saved it several years now, and I would like to keep saving it, and I'd love for it to get even fuller and thicker, and to make starts from it. That would be great. But I do love the Bougainvillea. When I saw that in Janie's, I thought, oh, it looks so much like a silk flower. It looks unreal, so beautiful. But I'll try to take this little coleus out and put it somewhere where I hope it will live. And we're supposed to get cooler weather next week sometime, so possibly I'll be able to go ahead and do some of this stuff without it giving them transplant shock so badly, or without them dying in the heat. Because yes, we're still having heat. We're still having 90 degree days. Look at this beautiful aster. Isn't that pretty? But we're still having our 90 degree heat weather, and I'm so ready for cooler weather. Right now it's morning and it is cooler and it is nice, and I'm loving it. I wish I'd be glad for the time when I can stay out here all day. But even as I say that, that's another thing. All these pretty annuals not all the annuals won't be gone when I take the houseplants in. But some of them will be. But you know, just taking the houseplants out is going to leave a bare spot, but it won't be that bare. I've got to stop feeling like that. I do this every year, and I talk myself into leaving them out here until I know they're going to die that night if I don't get them in, and then it's too late. You know, they get too cold. So it's going to happen. I'm taking them inside. So I'm trying to encourage myself to do it, but I am going to do it. Lord willing, I am going to do it. Look at this pretty pineapple lily, and see, it's not hardy either. So before we have a frost, it has to come inside too. I'll have to dig it up because it's a bulb. But you know, they're just, the beauty of having them in the garden is worth it to me. But so many things are worth it, and it's so hard to get all those things done. But I'm going to keep trying. this little common plain zinnia. It's just been so beautiful. It's like perfectly round and bright and just flat and just beautiful. I just love how it looks, and especially with this pretty bright purple celosia in that same pot. It just made it such a pretty little late summer and early fall plant, and it should be there probably until frost. These are my little pups from my aloe vera. So just look how these little profusion zinnias do in the late summer. They just take off and go and just keep blooming, and that's where I'm sure that's where they got their name, this little profusion of bloom. So my little coleus is doing pretty good actually. It wilted down a bit, but it's kind of perking back up, so maybe we'll have several days where it can look pretty. And then if my chrysanthemum there begins to bloom while it's still in there, I think that will make a pretty showing. It's been scraggly all summer long. A little breakfast, I guess, for this little spider. It's fall. They're really out and about. I'm quite sure the whole world would pass away sooner if we decided how it ought to be instead of God. But sometimes I just can't help but wish and wonder, why couldn't summer have the same type of weather that spring and fall has? So I don't know how many butterflies I got, if any, for you, but I'm hoping I did, because there's some pretty butterflies out here this morning. It's a little bit hard to see if I'm getting them with the sun glaring off the lens of the camera. Some more of the pretty single profusion zinnias. And the mums are opening up more. Not all of them, but certain colors are. Like this pretty yellow one. I'm still wanting to thin this out, but it's pretty like this too, but it definitely would look so much neater and hopefully still full if I trimmed it up some. This little pot of mums that I just put in here from the foliage and the stem, no root. It's got its own root now. I know it has some scraggly pieces that will need to be trimmed out, but there's so much green, healthy life there that I know they're building their own root now. And I thought earlier, well, they won't bloom anyway, but they still could bloom. There's actually little buds on top of these, so wouldn't that be great? And this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is a beautiful creamsicle orange color. Oh, how I hate to take this one in. Even though it's got some scraggly pieces, look at that new growth on the top. How pretty is that? And when I take it in, will it stay that way? Oh, please, Lord, let it. But, you know, most usually, and if history is any indication, it doesn't fare well in my house. But I'm also going to give it every hope and every prayer that it will, as well as this beautiful little autumn embers. It's so pretty. I know you can't tell how pretty exactly it is with all the scraggly pieces, but another one, if you just look down in there and see the healthy beauty and that beautiful color. And so I'm hoping to be able to save these through the winter and have them back out in the garden, and over that day when they just get more beautiful every year, instead of when they die back almost all the way and then just barely come out of it in time to come back in again. But we're going to have to break that cycle someday and get it going. Look at these little Chinese dunce cap. Now you can tell why they're called Chinese dunce caps. They're putting that little dunce cap of seed on. Okay, that's just about enough play. I've got to get inside and get to work. And then I've got to come back outside and get to work bringing stuff in. At least a few things. Little by little, we'll get it in there, hopefully. So I'm going to let it go, and I will see you next time. Please be sure to like and to subscribe to the channel.